to the Making Up the Numbers podcast. The Making Up the Numbers podcast is sponsored by Hope Technology, J-Tech Suspension, Revolution Bike Park, Ride Southern Spain, Schwal, and the world's finest independent mountain bike magazine, Singletrack.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of season 4 of the podcast. In this episode, we're spanning the ages of downhill. Kicking things off, we'll be chatting with the GOAT, the man who's amassed 4 world titles and 22 World Cup wins, Mr. Greg Minnaar. And then it's over to the Milky Bar Kid. If you're not from the UK, you might have to Google that one. The 2022 Junior World Champion, Jordan Williams. But first, big news. Jack, you're a dad. Congratulations. How does that feel?
Yeah, thanks, mate. It feels great. It's weird to hear you say it. He's 6 days old now. So, yeah, amazing.
Good stuff. Well, huge congratulations. I can tell you from experience, it is the most amazing journey that you're about to go on. So it's hard, but there's no bad with it. It's all good.
Yeah, we've even, obviously everyone says how hard the very first part is. And I think we've been at home now since Thursday afternoon, and it's Tuesday, so we've done 5 full days, and even those days have been great. I think it's easier for me to say than Sarah, because obviously she's the mom and she's having to deal with breastfeeding and all that stuff, but yeah, it's funny, I I really don't like poo. Sick, I'm not bothered with sick. Someone could be sick near me, I'm not bothered. Poo, no, don't do it. So I was dreading nappy changes. I was actually dreading it.
Really?
And honestly, it's been some of my favourite time with him so far, because he just kind of needs Sarah at the moment. So if I'm doing the nappy changes, it's the only kind of real quality time I get with him. And he's usually lying there awake, chirping away. And it's so funny how something that you can have this preconception of just isn't what you think it's going to be like at all. So yeah, we're just loving it and just taking each day as it comes.
Excellent. So you've timed it beautifully with little Blake arriving in the off season. Are you taking some time out?
Yeah, I mean, that timing was by design. We were lucky that we could conceive easily, but we planned for September, and he was due on the 25th of September and arrived 5th of October. So yeah, it's ideal. I'm not looking at going anywhere too far before Christmas. Because the coaching's so busy, there may be a quick trip to Portugal at the end of November if things are going well. But yeah, until January, I'll be in the UK, and we'll be getting things going here with the family and coaching at this side of the water. And then from January, there'll be a lot of stuff going on in Portugal, and hopefully Sarah and Blake will come with us. So, but yeah, It's just, as you say, it's a new journey and just going to build as we go.
Excellent. And I think Dan told me he was back at uni now. Have you confirmed the rest of the team for 2023?
Yeah, Dan's back at uni. No, we haven't confirmed stuff. That all depends on sponsors. We're such a small program that until I know what sponsors we have and what they're providing, it determines how many riders we can take. My hope for next year is to have a program that ticks off a rider in every category, because as a development program, that is what we should be doing. Unfortunately, that is completely dependent on the amount of sponsorship we have. So waiting to hear back on a few things, crossing my fingers that happens. If we're on a little bit more of a shoestring budget, it will probably be me, Dan, and a junior. But just waiting to see. It's all out of my hands now. I've sent my proposals. We just have to see what people say.
Are SR Suntour and Common Style still the ones you're locked in with them, or have you got proposals for them as well?
So SR Suntour are our title sponsor, and that's kind of a long-term, nice and secure relationship. And to be honest, without them, the program would struggle to operate. So a huge shout out to that brand. They look after us with suspension, with tech support, even pit space, and then obviously financial support. And without them, there's no way we'd be able to operate like we do. We are parting ways with Commental next year, along with quite a lot of other teams, actually. Massive thank you to them, being with them for 4 years. And they're just struggling to support everyone because of the shipping issues. It's as simple as that. We're parting on good terms. I'm even hoping to do some coaching for them with some of their younger riders in Portugal. We would have quite liked to stay with the brand because we love the bike and we love the guys, but it's just not possible. They're struggling to get frames to people because of the shipping issues. So yeah, we're looking for a new partner, and fingers crossed we find what we're after.
Excellent. Well, Emmy, on the day we recorded with Amory, you were packing for Whistler and you've just got back. Has time stood still for me, or have you been there a long time?
I've been there for 2 weeks, two whole weeks, and I think I've never been in like that time zone for so long.
Yeah.
Like we always move from one coast to the other, and I've never been to Whistler more than a week, and we were like insanely lucky with the weather. Like honestly, it's been summer there, like 25 plus degrees. It was insane.
Wow. Amazing. So I've seen the Instagram, so I think I know the answer to this one already, but it was a good trip, yeah?
Yeah. It was really cool. And having Benoit there for his first time in Whistler.
No way.
Yeah. So we had to do the whole experience. Like, we're going to Longhorn first day, going to Sushi Villa's first day, getting drunk upside down, drinking sake with Couscous was there. It was pretty funny.
Nice.
And obviously, like you would know Benoit, he was riding from like opening to.
Oh yeah.
The bike park closes at 5. It's earlier than during Crackwork, so he was like 10 to 5 almost.
Doing sweep and stuff.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So we were like doing a little bit. We're like, well, this is our vacation, like. But I rode more in these 2 weeks than I rode the whole year for sure.
Nice.
So I should probably drop it in here that we record these podcasts out of sync sometimes. So earlier today, me and Jack recorded with Greg. You couldn't make that because you were babysitting your stepbrother. Is that right?
Yeah.
Stepbrother.
My dad's kid.
Yeah. And then we've just recorded with Jordan, and you missed it because of jet lag.
I play guilty. I don't know. It's probably a mix of like being back home and like haven't done these in a while and been a bit tired, and also not really looking at my phone as much as I usually do.
Yeah.
So I was just like looking at it too late, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna not disturb the podcast while you're doing it. But yeah, sorry, Jordan. I would love to have heard that, but I guess I'm gonna have to listen to it now.
That's cool. It's good to have you on this bit, and I know that coming back from Whistler, you're going to have loads of juicy team rumours for us. So off you go.
Don't though. That's annoying. I think it's too early. But I know that Cam is not going anywhere, and isn't either. The only thing that I've heard is that Kolb might go to Scott.
Oh, that is a big team rumour. That hasn't been anywhere.
And someone that I know and that's close to me hasn't denied it or said it would.
Right.
So no, but like, so it might be on, but I guess I don't know if a lot of people signed yet because obviously of next year and everything.
Yeah, I think. Did you say you said just then about the issues being getting bikes and stuff? Is the whole industry going through a dip, Jack? Is that?
Honestly, like, I don't really know what's going on. It's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe, but we certainly know for a fact that the price of shipping containers from the east has like quadrupled or maybe even more. So there's that element, which is obviously going to affect sponsorship. And then we also know that the factories are struggling to turn out as much as they used to. So it's obviously going to affect us before it affects retail. And then there's the case of, is the bike industry doing as well as it was with the global recession? Or what are we even calling it? Is there a recession? Is there not? I don't know.
Yeah.
But are people spending money like they were? So yeah, I mean, who knows? I don't.
So the official ones, Jamie Edmondson said goodbye to Trek. I don't think that was a huge surprise, really. He's not had the best couple of years since he's been there. And Norco announced that they won't have a downhill team in 2023. And was Gracie Hemstreet riding for Norco?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen her there. She wouldn't give me any.
She'll have somewhere to go.
And I don't know her that well, but it looks like she has a few options.
Yeah, she'll have somewhere to go. She's going to score points, isn't she?
Yeah, I heard Santa Cruz might be an option.
What's Santa Cruz though?
Yeah, I did. That's the bit I don't know.
It won't be Syndicate.
Maybe Union. I thought, but
very possible.
That would be a good fit.
I don't know. I think it could be also maybe something like different.
Yeah.
Because she's someone that likes free ride and loves this. So someone else could like take over for the races, and then she could be a Santa Cruz like privateer rider, but with a very good contract. So I think that could be happening.
Yeah, I think the Mayer Smith brothers to Giant. I think that's been rumored a lot. I think that will happen. And Mark Wallace off Canyon.
So
That'd be a surprise.
So I've been around the same people I told you before, and we were in Valsol and we were talking to someone at Canyon, someone real short, and he was like, yeah, I would like to keep Mark on the team. So we were like, oh, so that's the first thing we saw. Oh, maybe so you're not sure. So obviously it was not signed. Yeah. But yeah, so that could be a rumor.
So what I'm going to do, Emmy, is I'm going to send you this audio recording tomorrow just to check you're okay with all these revelations that you're making before we publish it all out.
It's fine. It's not revelations, but I've been trying because I've got some good people to ask, but I don't think.
Yeah. And I believe Jack Moir's going to YT. I know that's an enduro rumor, but I believe that's that's in a lot of places.
I wouldn't say it's true, but
okay. So have either of you heard any more about next season? And I thought ESO were due to announce like the format of each race to the teams a couple of weeks back. Like how many riders would be making it through to finals, that kind of thing. Is that,
as far as I understand it from what we were sent 10 days ago? I can't remember. It was 10 days, 2 weeks ago. We got sent something, and it sounds like for next year most things are staying fairly similar,
right?
And changes will follow. Even the way we register, we still register with the UCI, and we pay this. I think we pay the same fees, and we get the same space and this, that, and the other. Yeah, I think 2024 it will get shut the fuck up. Like they're going to get it and mess around with it, but maybe Emmy's got a different insight. But
I wish, but I don't because I'm not a team manager.
Yeah,
and I think maybe you've not even big would have come from the team manager. I would have heard about it.
Yeah, so maybe you've not even seen that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I've talked to Chris Ball once again. I talked to try to like email Sean Hemdale as well as the team manager's representative, and Chris got back to me very vaguely, didn't say anything about any more specifics, but I didn't ask him like, oh, what's new? Like it's not in my, I don't need to know. Like I just want to know like if there's something big, if I need to tell the riders, but I think the riders would have heard from the team managers as well. So no, like I'm trying to establish like good communication, but that's all I'm doing right now. And if there's a working group at some point, maybe I can learn more there. But like you said, maybe they just want to work on it for 2024, and that it wouldn't be stupid to do it that way. Yeah. The only thing that I read though, because I was looking at the schedule of the World Champs, and the schedule of World Champs is weird. I don't know if you've seen it, Jack, but there's 2 qualifying and 2 finals. So it's not written if it's junior or not junior, but it could be that a junior race the Friday because it's Thursday qualifying, Friday qualifying finals, and Saturday finals. So it's just like 2 qualifyings and 2 finals, but like not on the same day. So it could be that juniors race Friday and elite race Saturday or whatever.
Interesting.
So this is the thing that I've learned today, and I haven't heard of it, and it's weird, but maybe it might change as well.
I'll look into that, and we'll catch up about that on the next episode. Earlier today, Jack and I caught up with Greg Minard, and we'll be back with the GOAT after these messages. Greg Minard, welcome back to the pod. Where in the world are you right now?
Hey, thanks, George. I'm in Andorra.
Nice. Weather there good?
It actually is, yeah. It's a beautiful day. Haven't been outside yet, but yeah, the weather's been really good actually.
Cool. So it's 9 a.m. UK time here recording this, 10 a.m. with you, I think. I know you're like a notoriously an early bird. You've not been outside yet. The neck's hindering you, is it?
Well, yeah, I'm normally an early bird, but the last few days I've been traveling, so 7 o'clock was good enough for me today. And I had a few calls to take, so I haven't been outside yet. But yeah, it's I guess it's tough, you know. It's when you're training and you've got a lot more to do in a day.
Yeah, I
definitely need those early starts to fit everything in. But now that my training's down to a little bit of mobility and it's a lot easier on the day.
Cool. So, not such a happy return to Val di Sole this season, leaving with 3 broken vertebrae following a horrible crash in practice. Tell us a bit about how it's healing.
Yeah, I don't really know. But you're quite right. It was a horrible return to Val di Sole. And healing-wise, like I said, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I wasn't in a lot of pain. I haven't been even through the accident. But I'll probably go for some scans next week and see what's going on. It's I was really lucky. Everything was stable. The fractures were clean and there was nothing out of place. So we're hoping that the process to recovery is quite simple, that as soon as the bones are healing, I can start getting some mobility back in my neck. Got a few milestones to reach in that, and which I'm working on with a long time friend in Cairo, Lawrence van Lingen. So I think it's important, you know, although everything is on track, or hopefully on track to be healing properly, I think with your neck, you don't really want to mess around. And it's important that I get full mobility back in my neck before I try to get on a bike. I don't want to risk too much with having a stiff neck or something that won't be able to bend or flex if I had to crash my head again.
Yeah, 100%.
Would you normally still be in Europe this time of year, Greg, or is that because of your injury and you're staying with the right people to fix it?
No, I'm normally in Europe. I normally only get back to South Africa in November.
Okay.
It's a busy time of the year. Just, you know, getting things done with sponsors, and I was in America for just under 3 weeks, working on some stuff with Fox and going up to Santa Cruz, and so it's been a busy period, and it always is.
Yeah.
So last time you were on the show, Greg, was the week before World Champs 2021, and also on that show was Miriam Nicole. You guys did the double. You both won that weekend. You can't tell me that's a coincidence, Greg. What was it that either Jack or I said that made the difference?
Well, no, George, but I'm pretty pissed off you didn't revisit this podcast the week before Val di Sole. Maybe that result would have ended out a bit better. But yeah, I remember that. I remember I was a bit, you know, I remember trying to schedule at a time. It was a bit busy, but we had a good time, and it ended up being quite a cool podcast. So.
Yeah, I think I was out at Masters Worlds. Was I in Pralu when we recorded that?
I think you were, because we spoke about Pralu. I remember racing there as a junior. It's a great place.
So you seeded 4th that weekend, and I think you told your lady to keep the gold marker in her bag. Did you just have a feeling you'd win? Because I don't think you'd won on Val di Sole before, had you?
No, I had a couple seconds, but you know, Val di Sole is such a challenging track. It's super tough, and I think it's just I felt really comfortable. I got up to pace really quickly. I was feeling confident on the changes we had made to my bike and the setup, and then I decided to back things down. You know, because we get an extra day of training. Although it's the same amount of time, it's just that that extra day seems like things drag on a bit longer. So I backed things down to make sure I ramp up to that final. And I was just feeling comfortable, feeling confident. And I guess that's what led me through into the race.
Did you at any point, sorry, George, at any point in that weekend, did you feel like you had it? Because the reason I asked that question is I remember years back, I can't remember what year, but it was when you were in the battle with Aaron for the overall, and I spoke to you on track walk about how you were feeling, and you said something along the lines to me of, "Oh, this is going to be a huge challenge. Aaron's so fast here," or something like that. you didn't sound like you felt like you could win it, and then you went out so hard in finals and you crashed. Whereas obviously last year you won worlds. Did you feel very different?
I actually felt like the race against Aaron, I felt like I was probably riding a lot harder. I was racing for the win, and until my wheel broke, I felt like I could have challenged for that. And I was really disappointed with that, because it's
Sorry, I had that wrong.
We experienced a lot of us as broken wheels that season, and that's how my season ended. World Champs was a little different, because although you want to attack and you want to go for it, you've also got to make sure you make it down. And on that track, that's a hard combination to get right.
Yeah,
and it's also really hard on that track, because everyone feels terrible. It's rough, it's rocky, it's rooty, and you feel as if you're not going quick enough, and you try to push a little bit harder, and then suddenly you're too quick.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the World Champs was quite a calculated ride. I knew exactly where I needed to push hard. I backed it down where I didn't feel comfortable. And then towards the bottom, I just held on, because I was absolutely knackered. It was such a brutal track. And probably one of the scariest moments in that whole run was popping out down the last wood section. You do the steep kind of switchbacks. You do that horrible drop down onto, I think you maybe cross the road. And then there's a few kind of relatively easy corners before you drop onto like a left-hander, and you pop out the forest. That left-hander, I think my right arm collapses, because I'm just like, I'm knackered. I've been pushing hard. I've dropped to the inside. I've G'd out a little bit too hard for my strength, and I collapse a little and save it. And I'm going, oh gosh, now I've got to hit that. I really don't like that finish.
The fly off.
The ski jump thing. Yeah.
Ski jump. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And you're coming in so quick, you're tired, and you can't break off it. And I just thought, shit, this is going to be a tough one, hold tighter. And I just sent it off there as far as I could, and tried to just absorb as much as I could through my legs. But that bottom bit of track, that to me was most nerve-wracking out of the whole race.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of that extra day that you get at World Champs or not?
You don't have an option to be. It is how it is.
Yeah.
I don't mind. It makes the schedule a bit more relaxed. The World Cup schedule is really tough. It's tough on athletes. I feel that the fans don't really get the attention they deserve, because our schedule's so tight. And that extra day does help. It helps alleviate a bit of time. You get to spend a bit more time with people who have come out to support and watch you. So I must say it does make it easier than the current World Cup schedule.
Yeah, I'm like, when we go and race Masters Worlds, we get it there. And for people of our level, I always think it's a great help, because you get to learn an extra day learning the track, which I know isn't probably, you guys are racing the same tracks pretty much year after year, and you like you've just done, you can talk us down pretty much the whole of Val di Sole now anyway. But for riders who are going to new tracks and doing it, not full-time athletes, I love it. I love having that extra day. I think it's really beneficial.
Yeah, for us, I mean, if we've been to the track before, if we haven't, we still got to find those lines. Yeah, we still got to know where those lines are. And so, it might help a little bit recognizing an area, but man, it doesn't make it that much easier figuring out lines and knowing what line to be on.
So after the World Champs win, you had a bit of a rough end to 2021. The following weekend, you pulled your back in practice in Lenzerheide and finished 19th, and crashed out in snowshoe, missing the final two rounds. How frustrating was that?
Yeah, man, it was terrible. I think I arrived in Lenzerheide so dehydrated.
Yeah.
Not only dehydrated, is once you win World Championships, that bike gets retired. So I'm now on a whole new bike. And trying to set that up. Obviously, I've had quite a busy week going into it, and possibly celebrated a little too much. And I just felt a lot of pressure. It was a tough race, and Lenzerheide's a track I like. I like being in racing there, and so that was really hard. And then going into snowshoe, I felt like I had calmed down. I'd got things back on track. I remember feeling pretty decent going into qualies, and just came into the first woods, maybe a little too hot, slipped on a root and sent me straight into a tree. Man, I've never hit a tree so hard. And I kind of felt like I possibly banged my head pretty hard, but I didn't touch my head on the tree at all. I felt like I'd stopped so abruptly that almost the G-forces had kind of given me my brain possibly a little movement inside the head. So I was well spinning after that. But wow, it was a hard stop. And as I managed to pull off, I actually tried to get going again. And as I went to pedal off, my handlebar had broken around the tree, which I hadn't realized. And so I had to pull off the side of the track. And as I was there, the Loris Vergier came bombing down, and he did exactly the same thing. But maybe being a little younger and a little smaller, he managed to do a little slip down the side of the tree and then pick himself up and keep going. So I was a bit bummed with that. It's a disappointing way to end the season. I was not doing too bad in the overall. I felt like it was definitely could have helped me move up the ranks a bit.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And it was just a sad end to a good season.
Knowing that you can't go on forever, does every missed race hit that little bit harder?
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does.
Yeah,
and I think that also goes to say when you screw up a race run or something happens in a race run, I mean, yeah, it gets to you because there's not that many races left. There's definitely a lot fewer in front of me than there are behind me.
Yeah.
So going into the 2021 off season, Greg, how many more obligations did you have to fill? Because you've said your off seasons are busy, but after that World Champs win, how much busier was it?
Well, it's I started training a bit earlier because I knew it was going to be busy, and I felt like I'd nailed the training side. I trained really well, trained hard. I got into testing in early season feeling pretty good, and then kind of the spring hits, and then everyone wants video content and filming, and that just continues and continues, and podcasts and interviews and more interviews and calls, and that gets tough, and it's so distracting, gets you out of routine, and so it's the pressure of trying to train. You've missed your training, you try and catch up, then you're too tired, and that made it tough. And then all the traveling into races, and eventually going into Lenzerheide with a few weeks break. And actually, I just took some time off. I was absolutely knackered, so I felt like my fitness is good, my riding's been good this year. I just need some rest, and I came into Lenzerheide firing and felt good there. So yeah. It's been hard. You get pulled in so many different directions, and I think it was, possibly also just it's been a while since I'd won one, so it's it definitely takes it out of you.
Yeah, for sure. When was the win before that? George probably knows, but before the World Champs win, what?
2013, I think.
Okay.
Oh, Worlds, yeah, the Worlds win, yeah, 2000.
And when was the World Cup win before the World Champs win?
Was it Lusa?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe Lusa.
Lusa, yeah.
Right, yeah, okay.
2020, yeah.
So only the season before. Okay. We think we remember Rob Warner saying in the commentary this year that you maybe did a bit too much in that off season last year. Would you agree with that? That if you could do it again, you'd say no to a few more people?
You can and you can't. It's one of those things you just got to manage on the way. I mean, it's a part of it, dealing with all the media and everything else.
Yeah.
I think Rob Warner's been spot on, and I think he's done an incredible job of understanding the riders and knowing what's going on behind the scenes. And I think he's been spot on many times, and he's very accurate with that comment.
Yeah, for sure. So 2022 came along, excuse me, and a huge refresh for the syndicate. Luca moved on. Laurie, Jackson, and Nina came in. How much of a role do you play in those decisions?
Not much. No, not at all. Maybe they would have run the riders past me and just thought, got my my insight into it, but yeah, not really much at all.
Okay. Is that Steve or other people within the syndicate?
I think Steve's involved. I'm not actually sure who's involved in that, but yeah. I'd imagine Steve would play a decent part and role in that.
Yeah, you've got enough going on. So, I mean, I remember when Luca joined the syndicate, and I remember the season before I'd seen you guys hanging out, riding together, and it was no surprise to me when he joined. Was it a disappointment when he left the syndicate? Did it feel like he was your protege?
Yeah, it did feel like that when he was joining the syndicate, and it was sad to see him move on. But man, he's had a great season. He kicked off with a bang. I was sad to see him get injured and have a few spills, but he started strong, and he, overall, I would say he's had a great season.
Yeah, definitely. You also made the switch to Fox, which meant saying goodbye to O'Neill and Oakley, who you've been with for a very long time. We think the Oakley partnership is 20 years. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, maybe 24 or so. I joined Oakley when I was 16. So,
wow.
It was sad to leave Oakley. It's been a great partnership, and we worked really well together over the years, and came up with some great product, and I felt part of the family. It's Fox was something new, and I just found like it was a great opportunity, and with Fox moving in as a team sponsor as well as the syndicate, it was something that needed to happen. So it's sad to leave, but also again, it's a new move, and I've been really stoked with everything that we've been developing with Fox. So it's bittersweet.
And I was so surprised when you left Oakley, because to me, some people like Jordan and Nike and stuff like that, some people you just associate with one brand, they are a perfect fit for that brand. And I just thought you were a perfect fit for Oakley. It's a really cool brand. It was right on point with you.
Yeah, I was sad too. I was hoping it could have continued, especially on the Arway side, but unfortunately that didn't work out either. So we have to move on. And
100%.
Were you really happy with the work you did with O'Neill over the years? Because I started with O'Neill the year before you joined through the UK guys, and then I just remember being so excited when you joined, because before that, obviously a big brand in motocross, but in mountain biking it didn't really have a presence.
No, I think we built the brand up quite well in mountain biking, and it got to a decent place.
So Lords round 1 this season, I think you had a few bike issues, and getting runs was also a bit of a challenge. You walked away with P16, which I believe you were happy with, all things considering.
Well, happy. I mean, I'm never happy with the 16. So, I was happy that the pace was there, and there were moments of looking into it and going, well, that's not too bad. But yeah, I had a bit of struggle with setup, and it was disappointing because I felt really good coming into the season. Yeah. And I had planned to be really ready for Lords, and that pissed me off. It was just a setup issue, and I just couldn't feel comfortable. But anyway, I lost a bit of track pace, and finally when it came around to the race time, I was just off the back. And man, the pace was hot up front. So I knew I was in for a tough season.
When you say setup issues like that, is it just a few clicks either way? Is it that close? Yeah.
One of the issues was they got a bit of confusion between my mechanic and Fox, and we went to a setting and the shock ended up packing. So in a World Cup, when you losing runs and your bike's on handling, and then you're trying to push it harder, but also you're limited to time on track because the organization side of the race the event is terrible. You're under quite a lot of pressure to get going. And so it was basically just the high speed rebound had gone one click too far, and it makes quite a big difference on the shock. So it ended up slowing the back end down way too much, and then going the other way and pushing it too far forward where the bike pushes. So I really struggle with a bike in the modern day of setting up a bike fast. You need that rebound to speed quite high. And I struggle with that. I prefer a bike to kind of be at a medium pace rebound so that I can actually control the bike under braking and get off the brakes and carry the speed. When it's too slow, it's obviously packing. But if I probably had to get on most of the top 10 bikes or maybe even top 20 bikes, I won't be able to ride them as in that setup. It's just too fast for me, the rebound, especially deep into the shocks. So it's a setup that we had just tried to go too far on one end, and it ends up breaking late in our current speed.
So you then raced the National at Fort William, and when I came over to you, I think you were having tyre troubles. I think you'd punctured on the same rock 2 runs in a row. Even with all your success on that track, after a few years away, how important was it to kind of try and get that race in before the World Cup?
It was, it was important for us as a team to spend more time together, and as well as just get this testing going and be together and work on our bike setup.
Yep.
There again, it was just that struggle on feeling comfortable, and I think that was just due to again maybe the back end packing really deep in those hits, and I've never punctured so many times in my career. So I was on a calls with Maxis to see if there was something up with the tires, or was it the back end of the bike just being way too slow, or what was it? So it's nice to have guys like Maxis and that backing us, because it's they can provide so much confidence when you know what's going on and understand that it's something else. So I felt the pressure going into Fort William already from that testing. It wasn't going great. I wasn't feeling comfortable, and it was hard to try and get that setup right.
So a few questions in my head here. First one is, when did you discover it was the rebound? And also, how do you said you'd gone, after the World Champs, the bike gets retired, new bike comes in. Do you just go straight to the same setup, same settings that you had before on that old bike?
Pretty much, yeah. We'll set up the bike identically. Yeah, so it would be very similar.
So when did you discover it was this rebound issue? Was that after Lords?
So straight after Lords, I myself and Jordy and Lyle went out to St. Romolo to do some more testing and try and get on top of it. And we kind of felt we'd gone to a great place. And then again, it just, Fort William kind of threw me a bit.
Yeah.
And that was hard. So it was probably after Fort William that I found like I was either trying to run the rebound too fast off the high speed, and or too slow, and so I ended up slowing it down more with the low speed and running slightly faster with the high. Both are kind of both affect each other, so it's just a balancing act, and I felt like after Fort William I'd gone to a good place.
So Fort William for the World Cup, you seeded P3, ended up P7. Given you've won there 7 times before, I think your splits were a bit back on where we used to seeing you. I think 7th, 12th, 17th, 13th, 10th. Was that purely bike setup, or was that the weather?
I felt like you had got to a good place in Fort William. The P3 in qualies was cool.
Yeah.
One thing, if you look back at the footage and notice that my number was flapping on my back, and man, that was annoying. And when you're racing a race in Fort William, it's fast. The line is super narrow, especially up top, and you've got this on your back. It's hard to focus 100%. So, man, it just pissed me off. And so I went back and I watched the footage, but I could see that. When I relook at the footage of it, I could see that I hadn't got a great setup. I could see that I wasn't quite myself on the bike. I wasn't attacking hard, and again, I think that I'd gone possibly a wrong direction in setup. So that's why I say after Fort William, I felt a little bit more comfortable on the bike, because we had tried one way and it just wasn't working for me in a race situation. But I was disappointed. I love racing Fort William. It's I like that style of track where you're generating more speed and you're trying to go faster and faster and faster. I prefer that to then being on the brakes and trying to control speed.
You're the opposite to me. I prefer Leo Gang, tough weekend, crashed in seeding and ended up 52nd. And then
did we all crash in seeding, or was it it seemed like everyone had a crash in Leo Gang. Leo Gang was, oh man, it was brutal. And then to throw a spanner in the works was like, we're on this track that's starting to dry.
Yeah.
I mean, come along, like anything else. So I wasn't overly disappointed in Leo Gang. I'd watched footage from the year before with Troy winning.
Yeah.
And Troy came in, I think it was like 1.5 or 2 seconds down going into that last woods.
Yeah.
And Troy was on mud tires. And Troy came out the fastest at the bottom of the woods and ends up winning the race. So I was like, okay, the track's drying. Okay, that's cool. Let's just stick to it. Just be confident on mud tires. Just make it down to that wall ride within 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, that's fine, whatever, of the leader, and things will work out, And I make it to the wall ride within the time we were kind of planning. I knew I was going to be off there, but, that was all the dry part of the track, and now it was going to be the meat of it. And I jump into that wall ride, and I think a combination of just, the heat, the day, we're now a little bit hotter in temperature, so the suspension maybe a bit more squidgy, and then the mud tires just folding in that G out as I hit that wall ride.
Yeah.
And I just shot off the inside, and I just thought, man, I've been disqualified twice in my career for like going out the tapes. This is definitely going to be on camera. I have to go back, do a little U-turn. And then, it's throwing you off your rhythm and you're trying to catch up in this technical wood. But I think I ended up with the fastest key section, which was, strategy-wise, we were all good.
Yeah.
Execution of the wall ride, terrible. But, I mean, I couldn't be overly disappointed that, we come through in a target time on the sectional track we wanted to be. And, it's just the way it goes.
The pace you came into that wall ride, because you jumped into it, if I remember, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were one of the ones jumping into it. Not everyone was doing that. And it was a hell of a G out.
I'll tell you why everyone's on jumping into
that, watching the Bulldog jump in there and then shoot the other side, I was like, I've got to give this a go. And when I did, it was so cool and so much fun to do. I was like, it had to be done.
Yeah, I'll tell you why everyone's not jumping into it, George, because it's fucking mental. the G out is firm when you don't jump into it. But yeah, can't even imagine.
You've not had your best results since they changed the track at Leo Gang. Would you go back to the old one if you had the choice, without that Longwood section?
I think it's so funny because all the riders want technical and fresh, and they do that. Then they go, no, we want the old track. This is too slow and shitty. But what do you guys want? I didn't really mind. I enjoy riding Leo Gang. It's a fun track to ride.
Yeah.
There's always just these great ruts. I love the jump lines. There's a bit of everything. It's sometimes they say it's a bit bike parky or whatever up top, but it's still the same winners. It's still the same guys up top. I don't think it affects the racing. It just makes it a lot faster and more precise up top.
On the last episode, Amory said that he likes when they have a variety of different tracks. So, like the new Leger, he preferred the old Leger because it had a style, and there was nowhere else like that with the big open grassy turns. Now it's a little bit. There's bits of it that are like Val di Sole. It's just metamorphing into. World Cup tracks are becoming all quite similar compared to how they were. And I kind of liked having that bike parky Leo Gang track as being one of the rounds of the World Cup. No,
I agree. I think there's got to be a variety for sure. I do feel sorry for any course builder because the amount of complaints and every rider wants this, and then they give it to the rider, and then they go, "Oh, that's terrible. We actually want that." And these poor track builders go from slowing the track down to then having to speed up the following year to then getting a complaint they want more natural. And, sometimes just riders just need to ride the track and just do our best and race on it because, it is a World Cup and it is a series and no track should be the same. And at the end of the day, it's the best guy can, it's the best race on each venue. So just ride, enjoy what you're doing. The track's nice and prepped. Have fun doing it and do your best. I mean, that's racing.
Yeah. So moving on from Leogang, you were back on the podium the following week, P3 in Lenzerheide. 1.8 off the win at 40 years old. I mean, I think we'll just let that sentence sit for a second. Fuck me, it's inspiring, but do you feel like you're doing something monumental, being a lot older than the guys that are right there with you? Or
I don't. Because I just want to win. I want to mix it up with the guys. So I don't really think about that. I was really stoked to mix it up with Finn and Amory. Well, not really Amory. I was mixed up with Finn. I think we had if you watch a replay, we have a close battle, but man, he rode that bottom section so well. Yeah. And it's so crazy. You can be on whatever line you want to be on, all the way down the track. You go over what do they call it? The wall or something. What's it like? That horrible, well, not horrible. It's like an awkward right with a slit in the rock where you can go over the rock. And Finn and I were both on the same line down the inside.
Yeah.
And then there's like this, probably the most dissatisfying left-hand corner on the whole track. And yet that track can determine the race or your positioning. Yeah. And it's this not very, you say not very technical, but it's kind of basic compared to the rest of the track. And you see my time go from in the green to just behind. And it's basically one left-hand corner. And it just impresses me. And you said more and more this year that, the riders pace the whole way down. It doesn't matter what line they're on, where they are on track, they're like neck and neck, and then it just be one corner, and that corner determines your positioning. I find it so impressive and the level so high that we're going down to like that measly little left-hand corner at the bottom of Lenzerheide to determine your positioning for the podium.
Yeah, it is cool. Yeah, you're dead right. 0.3 back on Finn at the bottom, which is next to nothing, and nearly half your age. So it is so cool to see that battle going on in the sport where there's that close and there's that age difference. Very cool. So prior to Lenzerheide, it had been a few races between podiums. Do you ever get to a point where you're wondering if you're going to get back on there, or is it just you're just ready for that next one and just focused?
It doesn't really cross my mind that I won't get back on it.
Yeah.
I felt like this year I had pace. My pace was good, but I was really struggling. Putting it all together. And just having fun, like finding myself having these like little issues here and there and just really throwing my race runs. So that to me was disappointing. I also find I'm probably a little hard on myself, when you look at everything from the outside, I've basically gone into a whole new team this year. Although I'm still in the syndicate and Lau was my previous mechanic, everything else has changed.
Yeah. So
our routine to the races are different. Things aren't quite the same as what they used to be. So it does take a bit of time to adjust and adapt. So it's not always that easy when structures change.
With that structure change this year, Greg, was that handled in a way where you're like, well, this is the syndicate. I've been on the syndicate forever. You guys are coming in. You'll behave in a way that works for us, or were you much more open-minded and did you let the dynamic mold around what it would be with those new guys? How did it play out?
I was so busy going into the season, I didn't have much time to think. And you go and going, oh yeah, we're in another season. You kind of, after 20 years of racing, you're like, oh, we had another race, World Cup, cool. And I kind of felt I didn't pay enough attention to it. I just kind of went with the flow and didn't realize I needed to put a bit more effort into the structure and routine going into each race. I found myself really busy grabbing stuff and getting stuff ready and doing things slightly different. So that but I think that was a mistake on my part. It's just sometimes I can be a little bit too blasé and just roll into things and dribble through, and they might work out, they might not, but things will be okay.
Yeah, okay. Just loitering on the subject of what we've just been talking about whether you ever feel things are going to slip away or whatever. Obviously, we're completely different levels, but I still see myself as a top 60 athlete, just about. I still absolutely love it. But because I'm 33 and I'm coaching and everything else I have going on, I constantly have people messaging me, friends or whatever, saying, "Oh, are you going to retire yet?" Or this, that, and the other. And fuck, it pisses me off. Like, I love it. I'll stay racing World Cups for as long as I feel like I want to and feel like I can perform at a level that I'm happy with. Does it get annoying, people asking you this constant question of, are you going to retire? Do you feel like it's this, that, and the other? Or do you just not care?
I'll give it to you in another way. Try be 40 and with a few broken vertebrae, and then imagine all the messages you're getting.
There you go, exactly.
Like, actually, I had to have a chat with my mother. My poor mum. She's so worried. She keeps telling me she bumped into people, and they also say that this should be a good time to stop racing. And it's my fault. I haven't had the time to just go through everything and explain it to her and let her know what's going on. But it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I think was a bit further on, but I'll ask it now, was the retirement thing. And I don't want to ask you about the retirement in when it's going to happen or anything like that. But I imagine with yourself, it's not going to be one of those slipping down the results sheets and, struggling to qualify or whatever. It's going to be, I don't think I can win anymore. That's the end of it. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I've always had a close relationship with the guys at Santa Cruz, and it's obviously quite tough. They take a lot of faith in having me on the team and going into a year in your 40s.
Yep.
And they've been really understanding, and my conversation to them has always been, I'll tell you by April if I'm ready or not, because it's the toughest part of the season is being prepared and being ready. And getting to a race, we love riding mountain bikes, we love racing, we love going fast. When you get to a race, the track's really well prepared. It's amazing. There's you get to be riding on a bike with most incredible equipment on a nicely groomed track at times, and obviously it's rougher through the weekend. But the real tough part is that preparation going into April or now June. And so I've always said to the guys at Santa Cruz, I'll tell you by April if I'm going to be racing or not. And if I'm feeling like this is going to be my last season, I'll know by then. It's getting out on the same training routes. That's monotonous. That's horrible. Going back to the gym, I hate the gym. You've got to fight your way to the equipment. You got some puzzler there flexing his muscles in the mirror. I mean, it's a terrible place. There's way better places to be than in a gym.
Yeah. So, and it's another question that we had for later on, and it might be one of Jack's, but I'm going to ask it now because we're talking about it. When you're laid in the gym in early part of the year, laying in a pool of your own sweat, what motivates you to keep going? Is it winning a World Cup at 40? Is it beating the Frenchies? Is it?
What goes through my mind is competing and racing. I don't think about age. It's solely on going out to win and be the best I can.
Yeah.
It's also tough because the older you get, the more weaknesses you find. And to Jack's point earlier, it's you're a lot busier. You've got things on, and I think that's where guys and from 30 onwards started to feel the pressure. You miss the mobility session because you feel the gym's a little bit more important. And I swear that the mobility side is way more important than the gym. And those are the little things you skip because you need to pick up kids from school or go to a meeting or whatever it is. You've got a little bit more responsibility. So if you can, I think you got to manage that well. And I think it's those little things, a little mobility session being able to move well benefits you in so many different ways. You know, if it's easy for you to get up in the morning or stand or bend down, you don't think of age. You know, as soon as you're struggling to move around, and then that age number starts to creep into your head, and I think it can do a lot of damage.
So on the day my dad turned 70, I remember I was chatting to him and I said, like, how do you feel, Dad? You know, you're 70, how do you feel? And he looked at me and he said, I still just feel like I'm 17 inside. And I can feel it now. I go and look in the mirror sometimes and I'm like, oh shit, I look old. You know, like compared to like, I don't feel like that. I'm still, you know, I'm 48. I'm still racing bikes. I'm still playing five-a-side with Jack on a Wednesday night. None of it is impacting on me. But when I look in the mirror, I look a lot older than I feel.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to pull down those mirrors, right?
Yeah.
Stick a poster up.
I think we're just a new age too. We're so advanced in the way we can train, eat, health, and everything else. You know? It's just a different time. I think it's great that, you know, a lot of comments I get on social media and from people is just saying how inspiring it is to see someone 5 years older than them still racing. You know, they go on their excuses, they're too old, and I don't know, you're never too old to have fun, right? And it doesn't matter what pace you're riding as long as you're having a good time riding.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so going back to the subject of riding, back on track with the script. P9 in Andorra. The new track did take some flack. You did just mention riders complaining and whinging on about various things on the circuit with regard to tracks and what we're riding. What were your thoughts on the new track in Andorra?
Yeah, I must say it was the track wasn't too bad. You know, you can eliminate some of those bridges. They were a bit tough. I think the organization were under pressure too. You know, there's a new building going up where the old finish was. I would have loved to have raced on the old track. I think finishing in the town made a lot more sense. But, you know, they were under pressure to try and get a new track going. They've got world champs coming there in a few years' time. And I must say, with all the challenges, the organization did an amazing job trying to shift people around and everything else. But too, it wasn't ideal for a World Cup. And I think it was hard on both sides. But it's track-wise, I think they did a pretty good job. It was great riding the track. I think maybe the man-made bridges they definitely weren't ideal. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a big change for next season approaching there. But yeah, I think that was tough on everyone. You know, and you got to understand it from an organization. You know, we're not in a position right now where Downhill can kind of dictate where we want to be racing. You know, it's we lack venues, and we can't lose a venue because, you know, we've got to give them the opportunity and understand that they're also in a tough position where they couldn't use the old Downhill track, and they still need to try and shift people around, and they didn't quite get it right, but they will be. So yeah, I understand it from their side, but and they understand it from a safety point of view from the rider's side, and changes will be made.
Yeah, for sure. So over to Snowshoe, back on the podium again, and I just want to pause mid-script here to mention you're on the podium with Ronan Dunn. Hell of a ride from him. What are your thoughts on that young lad?
What a wild man! It's incredible. I get so excited watching him because he's just. Either he has this massive crash and just walks away like nothing's happened. Yeah. It's like the Conor McGregor of mountain biking. He's just some tough kid. Yeah. But man, he had a great season. And once he had that podium, and he rode bloody well. I mean, that condition in Snowshoe was probably the greasiest condition I've ridden in my career. You know, and there's nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what time you want to go for. Once you hit those greasy rocks, your bike's just dancing all over the place. So man, it showed what skill this kid's got, and he's definitely one to watch going forward. But you know, I think he had a few good results after that podium, but that podium wasn't lucky. That was a great ride, an unbelievable ride.
Yeah, absolutely. I was 60th in qualifying, and then there was a rerun which put me 61st. And honestly, because of the conditions and how much I was looking forward to Mont Saint Anne, I was quite happy to be trackside Sunday morning. And he was one of the standout riders that morning. And I thought, wow, that wasn't a lucky qualifying. He's going to do well, and he did. He got on the podium with you guys. So yeah, good to see him. It'll be good to see what future.
Yeah, he backed it up incredibly well. And fair play. It's one thing to qualify well, and then suddenly you got this pressure, and he held his head, he held it all together. He had an amazing ride.
Yeah. Okay, so back to you. P5 on what you just said, very awkward track. Your 150th World Cup start and your 84th podium. Do you know if you've ever had a season without a World Cup podium?
I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure.
George, do we know the answer?
No, the reason I was asking that was because I couldn't. The career goes back too far for me to troll through, but I can't remember a season without you having a podium. That's just incredible, isn't it?
There you go. So if anyone does know the answer to that, I guess you can stick it in the comments on the.
I should have messaged Martin Whiteley. Really,
someone will find that out and let us know. Yeah. But there we go. Happy with that weekend, Greg?
Yeah, it was tough, eh? I mean, it was a tough race.
I was glad to get out of there. That
also
weather.
With some new sections of track that just rutted up really bad, but I had a lot of fun in there. Also had a lot of crashes as well. I mean, it was hard to stay upright.
Yeah.
I remember coming down and watching Luik just have a massive one. And I was like, wow, he was pushing way hard. The next run, I was in the same corner on my back, just sliding. It was comical, but yeah. And then I had a massive slam. I had a big slam down the bottom in time training. I rode into a rut. The rut was so deep that my wheels just stopped and I went over the bars straight onto my head and ended up scratching my helmet, which I was pissed off about. But anyway, it was cool. It's such a tough track to be up there. I was happy. I was definitely happy. So, yeah.
Cool. So post snowshoe, Omri's won 4 of the 6 races we'd had this season. You've raced everyone. Nico Volio's, Gwynny when he was Gwynny, and maybe we're going to see that again soon. Who knows? But Petey, Loic, where does Omri rank to you in the top guys you raced? And is there anything you take from watching his riding?
Oh, Anne-Marie's a hell of a tough competitor. When I look at them, they're so prepared. He's so prepared coming into every race. It's incredible. And he rides a hard, solid pace from top to bottom. He definitely ranks highly. You go back to the years of Nico and racing against Nico, and Nico was different. It's a different time of racing. We raced a different style. The styles are, I think over the years you've watched the progression of the style of racing, and that's been a way to adapt to. One of the things I've had to adapt to. It's definitely a different beast to what we raced back then. It's this, you go into the early 2000s, there was time to have a little breather before you attack the technical, where now you attack the technical harder and you don't have any breathers. But no, Anne-Marie's, man, he's been riding well the last couple seasons. But this year was exceptional. He definitely showed his strength.
So, Mont Saint Anne, you seeded second. Race run going so well. Second in Sector 1, fourth in Sector 2, third in Sector 3. Hit a tree in Sector 4.
Yeah. Come along. Mont Saint Anne's been tough for me. Yeah. I think I've only won there once.
Yeah.
I've had a bunch of seconds. I've had quite a few crashes in the race runs. But I was feeling good there. I felt really comfortable, and I knew down the bottom from qualies that I had a bit more pace, and I had a few lines that were working well for me. And I actually came real close to crashing going into that rocky section. I don't know what you call it. It's basically the bottom half. You come out from the open into the rocks, and there's like a left hand and there's rock steps, and I lose the back end, and I almost go down. I take a dab, but now I've got to ride the whole rock section unclipped. So I managed to clip in as you're doing the drop down, exiting the rocks. And so I think, okay, shit, I've lost a bunch of time. I've made mistakes higher up. I'm catching up, and then I blow it again. I need to go hard. And so I come into that section where I've got that gap jump, and there's a little step down before it. but because I'm under pressure and feel I need to go a bit faster, I jump a bit deep and I lose speed to do the gap, but I just think, no, screw it, I need to go for it. And I pick up for it and timing a little bit out. And I just start to go skew in the air, and I'm looking down, and there's a rock right on the landing. And I'm just like, it honestly felt like about 5 seconds. But as I'm looking down, I can just see my friend, and I'm trying to like pull the front wheel up, because if I can just get it on top of the rock, at least the bike will push forward. Because if it's going where it looks like it's going to give you, the bike's just going to push back, and I'm going over the bars quite badly. And I managed to land, like, surprised that the bike's pushed forward and I'm still on the bike, but now I'm way off balance. And I'm just aiming for that maple and take it quite, I managed to, I think I'm quite proud of myself, from watching Laura slip to the tree in West Virginia the year before. I think I took some tips out of that and managed to slip that one. But I was lucky there. I was lucky not to get hurt. But I was happy with the weekend. Disappointed I couldn't follow it through, and even a second or third or even a fourth would have been a lot better than a 30th or whatever, wherever I finished. I don't even know where I finished.
On to Worlds in Leger. If 2021 in Val di Sole was your week, Leger just never really felt like it was. Is that pretty accurate? It just never seemed to get going?
I think back to that week. Well, I started off with some amazing kit. I mean, did you see that kit that Fox made?
Yeah, it's nice, wasn't it?
Man, it looked good.
Yeah.
I think that's been the best kit I've had in my career. Everything looked great. So that was a great kickstart to the weekend. I felt good. I actually felt pretty good in Leger. Practice went well. I started to get a good rhythm going, and I felt really good leading into that. And I just got thrown off a little bit in my run. Up top, like going into the first split, you kind of do a few jumps, step down like slightly to the left, and then you've got the first right-hand corner, the real first corner of the track. And I ended up running late and just throwing me off and playing this catch-up, the whole way down, and then possibly just being on that frustrating side of pushing too hard and not carrying enough speed.
Yeah. The GOAT is a title I think is widely accepted that you own at the moment. After capturing his 5th Elite World title, 6th in total, are you worried about Loic taking it from you?
I'm not, I've never set out to be in this position,
Yeah.
I just wanted to succeed as a mountain bike racer. And so that title is something that I never really aimed to work towards or for. And, but, when you're the Super Bruni, that is a way nicer title to have, I must say. And it's very fitting right now. He's impressive to watch. Great guy on and off the bike. But that World Champs run was special, man. It's disappointing we didn't get to see where that 2.5 seconds was made up.
Yeah.
To be in front of that crowd and to hold everything together. And again, a tricky condition down to the bottom. We got to Leger where it was so dry and dusty that it was so hard to control the speed of bike and to corner and to carry speed. I mean, we saw Jackson go down in just a tricky section because it's so dry and dusty. So really tough condition, and being in front of a home crowd, loads of pressure, and man, he pulled it off. It was incredible. And all three of them,
yeah.
Loris and Anne-Marie, it was crazy. What a weekend.
A good run in Val di Sole, and I think you could have got 5th in the overall. As it was, the crash pushed you down to 10th in the final standings. I don't think we know for sure, but that should mean you're protected for 2023. Do you have
if not, I'll be bloody disappointed. No, it was crazy because I just got to hospital. I just had some scans and waiting for the doctors, and that was probably the only moment where I was like, a friend of mine had to retire from rugby because of a neck injury, and his vertebra had been displaced, and that was starting to go through my mind is how severe this injury is.
Yep.
And I picked up my phone and I was the last 10 guys to come down. So I started watching. And my fiance and Gaspari from Crank Brothers were down in the hospital with me, but they're waiting on the benches. And I'm in this bed trying to hold my phone, and then I go get all excited, and they come over like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, I finished 10th overall. I'm protected for next season." And they're like, "Well, you're not going to even think about maybe retiring or what?" I was like, "There's no way. I'm 10th. I'm protected. It doesn't matter. Things are good." That gave me a bit of hope and excitement in the hospital.
Excellent. So, what are your thoughts about ESO and Discovery taking over?
In what way?
Well, it's been a good run with Red Bull. I think Red Bull have taken it. There's a few things they could have done better, perhaps maybe some coverage of the juniors and things like that, but they've pushed the sport. It's come on massively from when it was on Freecast. I think they've done it. Everybody would pretty much agree they've done a great job. ESO taking over, it's going to be different. I don't really know. We don't really know anything, so it's hard to judge. But were you sad to say goodbye to Red Bull? Are you optimistic for the future, or are you glass half full about it, or are you glass half empty?
Yeah, I think you're right. Red Bull did an incredible job. I mean, I remember going back to the Freecaster days where the live feed used to stall out at, I think, like 120,000 viewers.
Yeah,
Red Bull have pushed that up to probably close on 1 million. Also, so it's been great. It's been great. Red Bull have done an incredible job. It's we don't know a lot what's going to go down in the future. Obviously, we've had discussions with Chris Ball and his team, and they seem to have a plan, and we've got to go along with it. It's I'm not a TV expert, and I've got to trust those that are. And if they're going to come in and provide a production, we better hope, and we've got to have confidence that they know what they're doing. From an organizational point, I think it's going to be a positive move. UCI have been organizing the downhill events and World Cups for some time, and they're not really an organization. This is the first time that they've stepped in, and without UCI stepping in to run the World Cups, we wouldn't have had World Cups. So I think they've played a great part the last, I think it's been 5 or 6 years or whatever it has been on an organizational point to actually take it on. So we've been lucky in that aspect. But now to be passed on to a whole group to organize and run the World Cups, I think we're going to see a big difference there.
Cool.
So going back to the new team, Laurie had to battle hard this season. He was sick a couple of times, I think. He broke his foot. But there was some incredible riding in there. Second at
what a tough guy.
Yeah,
I didn't know Laurie I didn't know Laurie very well going into the season, but it's been great fun. We had a good time in team camp watching him surf because he's an incredible surfer. He's such a laid back. He's like a laid back surfer, but then when you talk about mountain bikes, he gets ultra focused, and he's just got so much attention to detail, and it's been incredible to watch.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I spent a bit of time with him at Worlds in 2017, and we were hanging out off the bikes, and I wanted to obviously ride with him, but it was so dusty that year in Cairns. I didn't really spend any time with him on the bike. But yeah, he has this incredible way of being the most chilled out guy, and at times it almost felt like we weren't even at a race. And then all of a sudden you just see him change, and just this laser focus would turn on, and he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to win. So yeah.
I mean, going into World Champs, he ends up having a crash and breaking his foot, and goes on to having a great race there and great ride, and puts it all together, goes for an extra, and he's got this broken foot, which then he takes to Val d'Isole to keep going. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
Insane. So yeah, second in Montanant to Finn, third at Fort William. He had that incredible top split at Leogang before he crashed. What's it like having him on the team? I mean, you've just told us some stuff, but
yeah, it's been great. He's been a great teammate. He's shared a lot of stuff with me, and I've learned a lot from him. So it's been a pleasure to work with him.
Nice. So, I mean, Jackson and Jordan have just dominated the junior category this season. Can you remember 2 juniors setting times like we've seen?
You know, it's when I saw this question pop up, I had to think about it a little bit. But you know, it's so hard, and we're so busy on race weekends. To be honest, I haven't really watched junior racing much.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've actually paid any attention to it. You know, I've got a teammate, I'm supporting him, watching him through and seeing what he's going through. So, but those two have had an incredible battle. It's been good to watch and to watch these two young guns go at it.
Yeah. And then behind those guys, we've got this group of juniors who are also setting times well inside the top 60 men, some of them well inside the top 20. Are you excited to see Jackson and Jordan and these other juniors come through next year into elite, or are you a little bit more like me and thinking, oh shit, space is running out for all of us here? And where the hell
this list of Nicholas and Amory and Loic and Petey and Sam and Gwen, now we're going to throw in a Jackson and a Jordan.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it's going to be exciting to see. There's a lot of talk about them coming into the elites. I think that's great as a junior to have support going in, and it's going to make it exciting. You know, it's unfortunately we don't get to see all the coverage of the junior racing like we mentioned before. But now we'll see it first, you know, right in front of us. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So Nina had a solid season. The win in Fort William was incredibly impressive. And her style on the bike looks like it's much improved since she's joined the syndicate. Have you played much of a part in that? Have you spent much time riding with her and helping her develop, or has that been more Steve's role?
Yeah, Steve's done an incredible job. You know, he got out to the UK. They went and rode a lot of bike parts. It's really seen in her confidence on the bike.
Yeah.
And you know, we were out at the US Open a couple of weeks ago, and off she was to smash off a few whips in the whip off, and I was like, well, this is really cool. It's good to see. So yeah, she's really coming into it, and yeah, I can't take any credit there. Steve got out to the UK. It's just taken her around to Diffie Bike Park, to all these great places to ride, and which is incredible now in the UK. And wow, he's really done an incredible job there.
Nice. So sorry to do this again. I didn't write this script, just to confirm that, but we're going back to the age thing. You're 41 in a few weeks. Nina's 26, Laurie's 25, and Jackson is 18. Has that changed the vibe on the team massively as to what you had before?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, we've got a whole new team, really. You know, all new mechanics, barring Lyle. And 3 added riders, as well as you know, it's the first time a female's been on the syndicate, so it's been a great vibe. The dynamic's great, and you can't ask for more in a team.
Yeah. Nice. Have you gravitated more towards Steve and Lyle, the older guys on the team, or is it very much everyone's in one pot and you're all just getting on together?
Yeah, that you know, that's the thing with the team right now, is that when you sit down at the dinner table, everyone sits anyway. And there's no, you know, it's everyone just hangs out and has a good time. It's there's funny stories. We always have there's always a good time. Obviously, Steve and I are long-time friends. We've been friends for quite some time, so we always spend a bit more time with each other. Probably later at night, but it's been cool.
So. No Kathy on the tour this season, and I believe that was quite a big miss. How hard does it make it if like a core member of the behind-the-scenes team isn't there?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier. It's something that I was had to try and adjust to. You know, Kathy's been very instrumental and great for the riders in previous years of the syndicate, and that was took a bit of adjusting, and. Yeah, it's never easy, but that's we had to adjust and move forward.
And I've got to ask you about the riders' union that was kind of mooted mid-season and kind of got a foothold, which Emily is playing a part in, and it's unfortunate she can't be here today. But it was implied that it was a bit too much for a rider who was pushing for podiums every weekend to also be the UCI rider rep, because their focus is elsewhere. You and Miriam the reps again, I think, for 2023. Did you agree with the logic behind what the Riders Union was looking for, why it was established?
What were they looking for?
I think they wanted a wider of a view.
I was just joking.
Oh, yeah.
He got you there, George.
He did, yeah. No, I was prepared for that one. Believe it or not, Greg, we've talked about this question a little bit on our little WhatsApp group of how I should phrase it. Give us your thoughts on the Riders Union.
I think, the riders were worried about move forward, and rightfully so. One of the biggest concerns is safety, and that I totally understand. I've been the riders rep since 2008, and I think one of the biggest problems is the riders misunderstand what actually happens in a commission meeting and what can be disclosed, and normally those meetings are held confidentially. So it's when they say there's nothing coming from UCI, it's not from that the riders rep is not communicating with all the riders. That's the way UCI works, and that's the way the commission is set up. So I think things started to change when the union actually looked into the commission and how the commission is structured and operates. And once they realized that there's a non-disclosure of the meetings, then they understand that that's not a lack of communication or because the rider's too busy. It's actually just the way it's structured, and we can't talk about what goes on. I've been pretty open with the riders as to how those commission meetings operate, and what we speak about, and what we can vote on, and how it all works. Just so they get a better understanding. It's not that we go in there going, we need this and we must change it. We go through a whole bunch of different stuff. So I think once the union got a better understanding of what goes on, and Emmeline had read through the rules of the commission, I think that kind of changed their perception quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. Riders need to know that as well. I haven't heard much of the union or what's going on. We had meetings straight after Baldasol, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't think a union itself is the right way to go about it. I think riders being associated and talking more amongst each other is probably a better way to go. And I haven't heard much or seen much since then.
Do you think they should have more of a voice? Like, say, I'll bring it up again. The bridges in Andorra, for example, I think that was one of the things that one of the issues that everybody knows about. Do you think they should have more say in that and be able to do something about it? Or is it one of those, it's the track's the track, there's not a lot we can do once it's all planned and signed off by the UCI, which I think happens weeks, months before the actual race?
Yeah, I think it's quite complex in a sense that, for sure, safety is number one. Riders need to have a say in the safety, and that's super important. What I've noticed in the last couple of years is riders' safety is also slightly skewed between the lines that they want to ride and how they want to ride the track.
Yeah.
And I've noticed quite a few things being changed on track, not necessarily there are safety issues, because we ride in a sport that's in the natural terrain where there are rocks and roots and trees. But depending on how that rider wants to attack the track is how they've been adjusting the track and safety. And to me, that's not quite right. A track has to be safe, and that's super important. And we have to have a say in that. And, being at an event is possibly too late. This needs to happen before we get there. So that's super important. We're in a position where downhill doesn't have a lot of venues to go to. And it's not like we have 20 venues and we're picking the best 8. We've probably got 6 or 7 venues bidding, and ESO and Discovery are working on more venues for us to go to. If the position was the other way around, then I think, it might be worth us voicing more, but we're not. So we need to work with what we have and try and grow this to more venues and get more venues on board. Yeah. But that shouldn't lack safety. And that should be a priority.
100%. Back to something a bit more, I'm trying to think of the words now. We'll just talk about bikes. Back to bikes. So the V10, you're currently riding the Mark 7, which was launched in 2019. So you've done 4 seasons on it.
What a Mark 7, really?
I think it was Mark 7 when I Googled. And I Googled. It's quite a long time for a model to go updated. Let's go without being updated 4 seasons. Are you working on an update? Is there a new bike coming? Or
I'm sure there must be. I mean, you can't sit around too long without launching something. So, there must be a bike being worked on at some point. Those guys at Santa Cruz are flat out, and they've got a great development team. So I'm sure there's something in the pipeline.
Nice. Okay. So next year we start a little bit later. We start in June, but the World Cups run through to October. Obviously, you're not going to have, as you said earlier, the normal off-season you would have because you're recovering from an injury. But when are you looking at your off-season ending and your pre-season really kicking in?
I actually haven't looked, to be honest. Okay. I know we kick off in June. We're probably going to, there's talk of test events and stuff like that coming up, which is quite exciting. And that will give us a bit of a taste of what we're in for the season. But I think it's a really smart idea from Discovery to put on a test event to get a feel for things and try and iron out stuff before the first World Cup, which, if ESO is taking this approach, I feel like we're in for some really good changes coming up.
Yeah, for sure.
I definitely need a bit of off-season.
100%.
I'm hoping after the scans I can get out of this neck brace and start moving my neck a bit. But I'm going to take it slow getting back on the bike. It's definitely, I'm not going to rush it. I don't need to rush it. We've got time. And
nice,
cool.
Well, one sec, Josh. My last question, George has already asked, so we know what motivates you. So I'll just sign off with just saying good luck with your recovery. And
thanks, Jack.
Fucking inspiring to see what you're doing and how well you're racing. And I'll see you back there next year. Yeah,
thanks a lot, man, and have a good off season.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Yeah, best of luck, Greg, for 2023. From all us old boys racing the vets and grand vets categories, thank you for keeping yourself at the sharp end and just every season making us question what's possible. It's so inspiring, and thank you for making the time to come on the pod. I know how busy you are, and every time we chat, it's a huge insight.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. It's always great chatting to you guys, and maybe plan it a bit better next year. If we know that it's such a inspiring, lucky podcast to be on, we should plan it ahead of some good events, maybe like a week before Fort William. Or something.
You and Miriam the week before Fort William. I'll drop her a note.
Let's put it in the calendar.
Cool. We'll be back with 2022 Junior World Champion Jordan Williams after these messages. I started racing downhill in 2014, and despite 2 solid seasons of terrible results, was somehow invited to join the Revolution Bike Park race team for the 2016 season. Some people have said that I was brought in as a replacement for the outgoing Joe Breeden, but it was never made official, so that will just remain pure speculation. But as we reached the halfway point of the 2016 season, with all my teammates challenging for national titles, but my results showing little sign of improvement, I started a blog writing race reports about life towards the back of the pack in the vets category. That blog, Making Up the Numbers, was picked up for the 2017 season by Singletrack, where it ran for 3 years before being replaced by this podcast. Why am I telling you this? Well, in those race reports, I also covered the other categories too. And whilst the winner of most categories changed every weekend, the winner of the juvenile category rarely did. And it was a young lad called Jordan Williams. His name stuck with me. And like many others, I've followed his progress ever since, and I'm delighted to welcome him onto the podcast. Jordan Williams, how's it going?
Yo, guys, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. Just chilling at home, doing a bit of riding, and just enjoying the off season.
Excellent. So let's go back a bit, because you were actually racing before those juvenile seasons. I think you started racing the mini downhills at the Forest of Dean in 2014 when you were 10. Did you get the race bug straight away?
Yeah, there were some fun years. I used to race motocross when I was about 7, and then I had a few injuries and sort of stopped that a bit, and then got a mountain bike. And I remember just begging my dad, let's do racing. And so we entered the mini downhill, and then went and did that, and gone from there really.
So do you think the motocross helps as a small kid?
Yeah, definitely, because you you learn, although it's different, you learn to ride a bike, you learn like the racing aspect of it. And yeah, I feel like if you race motocross or race BMX before mountain bikes, it can really help you.
So
knowing your dad as well as I know him, I can't imagine he took much persuasion either to go and.
Yeah, no, I did about a year of riding actually before my first race.
Okay,
right.
And then I remember saying, "Can we do a race?" And then we went and did one in December at Forest of Dean. Yeah.
So
nice.
were you as good at the motocross as you are at the downhill or not?
If I can remember, I was pretty good because you can start racing from when you're 6 at motocross, which is pretty crazy to think. And yeah, I remember a lot of the kids were about 10 or 9, and I was like 6 and 7, and racing them. I remember like trying to beat them every weekend. So it was. I think I was pretty good, but I wasn't like someone amazing, you know.
That's mad that you can race motocross at 6 or 7 with an engine, but you can't race a bike until you're way older than that.
Yeah.
So 2015, you're an 11-year-old racing 12-year-olds, and you're always in the top 10. January 2016, you take your first win, and then boom, you win 13 of your next 14 races. Did that first win give you a huge confidence boost?
I can't actually remember back then, but I can remember my first few races were on a hardtail, like an XC bike.
Right.
Flat pedals, like football shoes. It was pretty funny, but and then I remember I got a downhill bike, and then I won my first race, and then just from there onwards, having the downhill bike helped. So
yeah, I can imagine if you're racing on a hardtail, you switch to something, you know, that's actually built for the job. That's going to have a massive impact, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah.
Cool.
So sorry, George. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what was the downhill bike? What was the first downhill bike?
Nuke-proof Pulse. It was 26-inch wheels. You know, small little bike and way too big for me at that age, but it worked.
Yeah, they were good bikes.
Yeah.
So turning 13, you became a juvenile, which is probably where most kids start racing. But you already had 20 plus races under your belt at this point. Was the mini DH scene, was that a good introduction to racing, would you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think those sort of races, it's sort of like a national for the younger kids, because that's like the biggest race. The tracks there are pretty technical for 10-year-olds and whatever, and everyone goes to those races. I remember Chris coming from Ireland. He always used to come over and race them, and yeah, I think it's definitely a big help to the younger kids racing.
Nice. Yeah, get some used to it. So you then raced a lot of the Winter Series too. And the Ford Winter Series, it's rooty, it's going to be very slippy. Do you feel like that helped you develop your riding at an early age?
Yeah, definitely. It's just, like, as I said, some of the tracks they're pretty technical for 10-year-olds. So it definitely helped a lot.
Nice.
And we're having that competition there as well with everyone there. You're pushing hard, and you
used to it early.
Do you still go to the Forest of Dean?
I do a bit, definitely not as much, but I do ride there quite a bit. I have a lot of my mates that actually live there, so I ride there quite a bit. Yeah,
I haven't been for ages. I remember there was one track called Sheep Skull, I think.
Yeah.
That was my favourite. I think it's probably been like 5 or 6 years since I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and George just pointed out that, did you do some coaching with Charlie Hatton when you were younger?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Charlie helped me quite a bit, actually. I remember the first day coaching with him. Yeah. He sort of showed me the basics, and he was like, "You're actually pretty good." So he's like, "Let's just go on uplift day and you follow me."
Yeah.
And I think he was like, that will help you more than me trying to teach you the basics that you already know. If you get me.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting that George has picked up on that, because in 2017, when Charlie had his amazing season, I was almost going to say it's where the sport was almost transitioning a little bit, but maybe that's wrong. But I remember watching Charlie, and I don't think many people will argue with me when I say he's got one of the best styles for racing.
Yeah, definitely.
Body position is faultless. He maintains it, and I analysed that a lot myself for my own riding on my own position, and then off the back of that, I've then used a lot of that in my own coaching. So it's interesting that George has picked out that stat that Charlie coached you when you were younger.
Yeah, he's good.
I remember, I think around that time I was meant to come out to Portugal with you, Jack. And
yeah,
I couldn't come at the last minute, and Binsey went in my place.
Yeah.
And he came back and he went, I said, "Oh, what was it like?" And he was like, "There's this young kid called Charlie Hatton, and he's the best kid I've ever seen on a bike."
That must be 2016, I think, because Charlie was an elite in 17. So that would have been 2016, his second year junior. I remember that. I think he won the junior race there at Faro.
Yeah. So moving on to 2017, first year juvenile, you start racing the Pierce and won national, which you won. And then 2018, that's when you came onto my radar. I remember you winning in Fort William at 14. Your first race down the bill, and you did a 5:13, beating William Brodie, who I think was the local, by over 7 seconds. Tell us a bit about that. Was that a big result for you?
Yeah, obviously as a kid going to Fort William, I was like, "Oh, I'm racing this track that I've watched the pros race at the World Cup," and it was like a long track, a unique track, and I remember it being pretty cool. And having that time as a juvenile, I was pretty stoked with that.
And how did you find Fort Bill? Because it's hard for fully grown, elite athletes.
I think it's one of those tracks that suits my style.
Right.
As I think I've got the style of quite smooth, and I always do well on like fast and rough tracks. So I think it sort of suited me straight away, and I really gelled with it.
Yeah. So that season you became national champ for the first time at Glencoe. I talk about that race quite regularly. You won juvenile. Luke Williamson won youth with a faster time than Cade Edwards, who won junior, and Matt Walker won an elite. What a quartet of British talent there, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I remember that day because Luke beat me, and it was like, I've not been junior, I've been youth. And I'd had a decent run. I think I was like 6th or something in elite, and I remember Luke standing out for that one.
So what did you think? If you like the rougher tracks, faster tracks, what did you think to Glencoe? Because that's rough, but it's not one of the faster tracks, is it? It is in places, but it's steep.
Yeah, I remember that race. It was a funny one because the weather was bad. It was rainy, windy. It was horrible, and our race run, we got red flagged. So it was like 4, 5 juveniles that had to go back up and do a rerun. And then the timing was wrong, and we were all stuck at the top, freezing cold. It was a bit of a nightmare, but yeah, I remember it being a hard one, but it was a good race.
Yeah, it couldn't be more different to the Forest of Dean, really, Glencoe, could it?
No, it didn't.
and I wouldn't want to be stuck up there at the top. I've been stuck up there at the top when the weather's turned.
I remember years back, I couldn't tell you what year. We're going back, maybe 2013, maybe even before. And I remember we were sat up there, the lift had closed. It was Saturday. And we were all in there. As you go up the lift towards the top, there's like a shed on the right.
Yeah.
We were all huddled in there. And I just remember someone like Petey or someone just pointing and starting laughing. And we all looked round, and Greg Minard is sat on this barrel, just like blowing on his hands, just looking like he'd been taken to hell. And Steve or someone shouted at him like, Greg, and he just kind of just went, gave him a finger and then just looked back down at his hands. And about an hour later, they called the race off. And it was just like, fucking hell, yeah, this is a wild place to race battle.
Yeah, it is, definitely.
We talk a bit on the pod about team managers looking for talent, and if they can find a rider who's not just winning but setting times that would win the category above, that really grabs their attention. Is that something you were trying to do?
I don't think that was necessarily something I was trying to do. I think I was just going there to win the race, get the jersey, and see how fast I could go. And obviously with all that weather, it's hard, but I don't think I was trying to beat the categories, but I think it's always nice to look after the race, see where you would have finished in the category above.
Cool. So 2019, you joined Madison Saracen. Tell us a bit about how that came about.
yeah, that was a pretty cool one. My dad spoke to Matt Walker a bit, and then sort of started talking, and then Matt mentioned it to Will, and then sort of spoke to Will a few times. We met at the last few nationals, and then tried the bike, and we liked it, and then just went from there.
Cool. And you moved up to youth and won a couple of nationals in your first season on the team. Then 2020 COVID hits and no races whatsoever. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, that was a hard one for sure, because I haven't really got any riding near me where I live. Everything's about an hour away. So with COVID, I couldn't really travel. I couldn't really ride. So it was a hard one, but I've got like a dirt jump spot like 25 minutes away. Yeah. So I remember just going there like every day, and I didn't ride a lot, but it doesn't seem to a hard one for sure.
Doesn't seem to have slowed you down.
I remember that season was the first season when we signed Dan, and it was the year he got his silver medal as a junior. And I remember constantly that year he was telling me that Jordan's fast, just Jordan Williams lad, he's fast. And I to be honest, at that point didn't know who you were at that age. And then I remember towards the back end of the season, you were out in Val d'Isole. And that stood out to me because I was like, now that's serious. There's COVID going on, limited races. And those guys have gone out there to ride a track that they know they're going to race when they're a junior, and it's arguably the hardest one. That stood out to me that season. Sure.
I remember during COVID, and then sort of the rules came off a bit, and we went up to Fort William, did like a few days there, and
remember that as well.
Rode that, and then me and my dad said that we got Val d'Isole next year, my first year junior. Yeah. One of the hardest tracks. There's loads of lines that'd be hard to learn from just doing like 6 runs in practice or whatever. Yeah. So let's go out there and ride it and see how it is. I remember getting there and thinking, oh my God, what have we come to, you know? I was the first few runs I did, I couldn't get down it. I remember walking down one section thinking, how am I going to race this next year?
Yeah.
And then you ride it a bit more, you ride the other tracks in the bike park, and you sort of get used to it. And then, it sort of got used to it, but it's still an insane track.
Yeah, and I think that's a valuable thing for any parents of young riders or any young riders themselves that listen to hear and to think. Now you've obviously just been there and won Junior World Cup there, set fastest time of the day on a track that 2 years ago you said you were scared to ride down parts of it.
Yeah.
That just shows the importance of getting out into Europe and riding these tracks, even just riding the same dirt. Sometimes we'll arrive at a World Cup venue a few days early just to put tyres on the ground, even if it's not the same track. It's good for people to hear that because it is so important.
So
I think you see a lot of kids from the UK that they live near riding, like riding spot, and then they only ride there. Yeah. And they go to somewhere else and they find it really hard.
Yeah.
Whereas I think me living further away from tracks, it's a bad thing, but it's also a good thing because it forces you to ride other stuff.
Yeah, develop the skills and go and apply them. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously riding those tracks, and I think it helps to ride different locations every weekend and not just the same place.
100%.
So I've only been to Val d'Isole once, and what you said about it then, I raced Masters Worlds there. I think it was 2016, and I went with Mark Waitman, he's on our team now. Mark's been around the scene when he won Masters Worlds in 2017 or 18, Danny Hart came over to him and went, "No one deserves that more than you, Mark. You've been at every race in the UK that I've ever been to." He was at Farmer John's last weekend. He's been everywhere. Any race that's on, Mark's there, and he starts talking to me about these lines in the woods, and he's going, and you go past that tree, and then you hook round to the right, and then you get up on that bank on the left. And I went, Mark, just stop. And he went, why? I went, I go into the woods, Mark, and 3-4 minutes later I come out of the woods. I know the ski jump at the bottom, and I know the bit at the top. I do the road gap, and I know that bit. I just ride the line in the woods. You're pointless talking to me and about lines in there. I just ride the main line through there. it's just insane to try and learn it. I think I did 11 or 12 runs over 4 days, and you just can't. You can't tell people how wild it is. So
it's a great.
I think this year really showed that how hard it was, because in practice, I remember watching like the elites and thinking they're struggling, and it must be hard when you see the top 5 elites in the world struggling. So
that must be a huge confidence boost when you see them struggling and you're doing okay.
Well, confidence and more scary knowing you have to ride it.
So 2021, first year junior, and you found the level straight away. 4th in Leogang at your first World Cup. If I remember correctly, you had a big slam in practice there too. 2nd at the next one in Leger. Did riding with Matt Walker, did that help you find the pace?
Yeah, that first World Cup was hard. I didn't race for like nearly 2 years before that.
Wow.
And then because of COVID, and then I didn't really ride any big tracks apart from 2020 when I went to Val de Sol. So turning up to Leogang, which is probably one of the hardest.
Yeah.
As a first year junior and first World Cup, I was pretty scared and had a big crash, like one of the biggest crashes I've ever had, and I was really sore. I managed to sort of pull it behind me and crack on and race still. So that was after. And then my second World Cup with Matt's helped me loads. It's been great riding with him at home, but riding at World Cups is hard because they have the split practice of A and B practice.
Yeah.
So you don't really ride at World Cups, but the main thing I pick up from him is sort of what he does in the pits and how he warms up, how he goes about it, and what he's looking at and track walk and bits like that.
Cool. That second in Leger was kind of the start of your battle with Jackson Goldstone. After that, except for Lenzerheide, you were second every time until you raced Snowshoe. How frustrating was that, being so close but never quite catching him?
Yeah, that was pretty frustrating. I remember making a lot of like junior mistakes.
Right.
And I think it isn't a bad thing, but it isn't a good thing at the same time. But I remember Maribor, I had like a lot of the races I had the speed to win. I definitely had the speed to win, but those mistakes cost me a lot. And Maribor, I was faster by quite a way, I think.
Yeah.
And I was up at the splits, or I wasn't up at the splits, but I remember making a big mistake at the top. And then I brought back loads of time. I brought back, I think, nearly 3 seconds, and then just missed out at the finish. And then other bits like Val de Sol at World Champs, I had a big crash in practice. So I missed half of practice. And I think those mistakes really cost me. But I think sometimes you've got to go through that to learn from those mistakes.
100%.
Just holding our thought on that first season, something I wanted to ask you. Obviously, as you said, you live down in the south of England. It's flat.
Yeah.
You've had to travel for the limited riding you've had accessible to you. You've then gone through COVID, quick trip to Fort William, trip to Val de Sol, bit of this and that in the woods.
Yeah.
You're competing against a guy the following season who was born in Whistler, has ridden in Whistler. We've all seen the video of him when he was about 5 on the Strider bike. So he was born and bred to race World Cups. I know personally how the Whistler effect affects you as a rider. I went there as an average senior and came back 6 months later as a good elite. How did it feel going into that World Cup season, knowing that you were about to race him? Did it feel like an impossible mountain to climb? Tell us, because you've done so well over the last 2 years to compete with him.
Yeah.
My question is, how did it feel going into it? And how does it feel now?
If I'm totally honest, my first World Cup in Leogang, I didn't really know much about him. I didn't realise how quick he was.
Okay.
And then obviously after that first World Cup, I was like, I got my hands full here.
Yeah.
And then, but I didn't really know much about Jackson. And then obviously after those first few races, I was like, this is going to be a good 2 years. And I think we've really, really helped each other, because I've definitely pushed him and he's definitely pushed me. So
nice. I think that's an important thing for kids to hear, for sure. It would have been easy to go into that, like I just described, almost fearing it. But as a kid, as a young athlete, you should just want to beat everyone. Like, you should just want to have that killer instinct that I can beat everyone. And it's, as you say, it was good you went into that not really knowing much about him. Just go up and be in the fight. Cool.
So 2021 European champion in Maribor. Did you know much about the European Championships? Because they used to be quite big, but that was probably before you started racing.
Yeah.
They've had a bit of a comeback in the last 3 or 4 years, but were you aware of them? Were you?
Not really. Obviously, I knew it was a big race.
Yeah.
And I was sort of going there just to like warm up for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because the World Cup was the week after. And then as the week went on, I was sort of like, this is quite a big race. And then I remember qualifying, I crashed, but still won the qualifying. And I was like, I think this is also like something I learned, a big learning curve for me. So I thought, this is easy. You know, I'll go out and win tomorrow easily. You just got to stay on. And I think it was good that because I crashed in the race as well.
Wow.
And I was like, oh God. And then the rest of the run, I was like, I really need to push on here, and only just won it.
Right.
So I think that was a big learning curve as well. I was like, oh, this is easy. And then I crashed again. I was like, so yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a big race, and it will be obviously Andreas Kolb won it this year.
Yeah.
And it looks cool, the jersey. So
yeah, and Loris won it.
Loris won it,
yeah. And he wore the jersey all year, didn't he, as well? So
they have to.
Yeah, that kind of, I think that helps push the event maybe.
Okay, so moving forward to snowshoe then. You won the final 2 rounds of the season. Did that give you a big confidence boost going into the off-season?
It did and it didn't. I mean, the last race of the year doesn't really affect next year, but it definitely helped sort of like the mental side of it, knowing that I can win it and going into the off-season. And I turned up to snowshoe like, I'm either going to win this or I'm doing a DNF. You know, it was after all those second places, I was like, I'm risking it here. And I remember the first round, I don't know how I stayed on my bike, but I did. And then the second race, it was a bit more mellow, but yeah.
Nice.
So it was good fun, that race. I remember my mates Tom and Toby were out there.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that week. And it was in America, all this big stuff, and it was cool.
Nice. Okay, so fast forward through the off season into 2022. Started off with a third in Lords, and then you win the national at Fort William by 9 seconds with the second fastest time of the day. How much confidence did that give you ahead of the World Cup? Because I mean, I can tell you now, 4:34. I've never done a time like that down Fort William. I think my best ever is 4:38. So it's an insane run for anyone. Never mind a junior. How was the mindset going into the World Cup?
Well, that first race in Lords, I remember I'd come away from it a bit like confused because I had a good run and I was quite far back. I was like, it's going to be a hard year, but I sort of started off really slow. I mean, we didn't do much riding pre-season, and then that first race I started off quite slow and I struggled there. I didn't feel like I was struggling, but I definitely did looking at the time and whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was quite a big gap to the next race, and then we had the national at Fort William, and I know that track, and I did well there, and it was a good confidence boost for sure. So
we then go to the World Cup, and you won that too, with a very exciting bottom split race between you and Jackson.
Yeah.
I was watching it with your dad. He was a nervous wreck, and can you remember what time you guys were split by? Was it 400ths? Is that right?
I think it was 0.012.
Right, so 100.
100th, I think.
A very tight race, but obviously you came out there on top. The time would have put you 5th in elite, and then you went on to win in Leogang as well, and that gave you the lead in the series and the leader's jersey. How much pressure did that bring?
Yeah, quite a bit actually. I remember at the World Cup, I was quite nervous for that because obviously all my family there, friends are there, a lot of people I know that were there, and it's probably one of the biggest junior crowds I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the best run. I remember trying to pull a tear off, it didn't work, and I couldn't see in the woods, and so it was good to sort of get that over and get the win. And then Leogang sort of relaxed and I put down a good one. And then I had the number 1 plate, and I didn't feel a lot of pressure, but I must have done because Lenzerheide was like the 3rd corner, had a massive crash first run. And I was like, I felt really embarrassed, just the number 1 plate I've crashed like in a straight line. And then like first run straight out the gate, I was like, oh, but I sort of got over that and then did all right in Lenzerheide apart from hitting a tree.
Yeah, well, I think what you've just described there is another one of those, what you called earlier, junior moments that you'll be able to dip back into your memory bank in years to come when you're in elite and go, hang on, I've been here before, let's not be into that. It'll be a lesson learned that you can go back to.
Yeah, definitely.
You just mentioned Lenzerheide. You hit a tree in your race run, but held on for 3rd. Was that finger broken? I think was it broken?
It wasn't broken, but it was very sore. I couldn't move it for like a week afterwards, and I remember still got a big scar on my finger. So
nice. Andorra, I think that's when everyone really started to sit up because about you guys in junior, because Jackson posted fastest time in a day and you posted the 3rd fastest time. And I mean, track conditions changed a bit as the day went on. I didn't ride on the Saturday, so it's hard to say personally, but you could see there was a little bit of difference, but it didn't rain. So the track was very similar. Did it feel like more people were paying attention to you guys after Andorra?
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching the elite race at the bottom, and I wasn't stood next to Jackson, but he was near me. I remember going over to him and we've just got the 2 of the fastest times. Well, I was 3rd fastest and he had the fastest. And we were like, it must have happened, but we were like, let's just take it. We'll take it. And I think from that point onwards, we really showed how fast me and Jackson were.
Yeah.
And started to not make as many junior mistakes, apart from made one in snowshoe the week after or whatever it was. But
it's all part of racing.
Yeah.
So, go on, Josh.
Yeah, can I just ask you? Like you two were way out in front. I mean, we recorded with Greg earlier this morning, and we were asking him if he can recall any time when it's he's seen juniors post times like this, and he couldn't recall any. I can't recall any. You're so far ahead of the rest of the field in junior. Did it feel like you two were kind of in a category on your own?
Yeah, it did, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really go into a race. I didn't really think about anyone else bar Jackson.
Yeah.
It was sort of, I'm racing him, and then because I knew if I crashed or had a bad result, I'd still most likely be second.
Yeah.
So yeah, it did feel like we were in a category of our own.
And like any other year, if you'd not had him, you'd have won the series, you'd have been world twice, you'd have been world champion twice, I imagine. Or do you think it's better to have done it the way that you've done it and had this 2 years of, because if you'd not had him, you probably wouldn't have had to ride as hard. You wouldn't have tried as hard, you wouldn't have pushed as hard. Do you think it's better to have had that? Or do you think, would you rather have been the double world champion?
Yeah. Although it's horrible to be in the position of you having to go as fast as you can to win and risking it all and, not winning every week. But I think once you get out of junior, I think you really appreciate that you've had to push each other, because you go into elite, hopefully not being as far back as what maybe other juniors have been in the past.
Yeah,
definitely. So when we watch you ride, it looks pretty effortless. And you mentioned earlier, you feel like you have quite a fluid style. I can't remember how you worded it. It does look like you just kind of have that natural speed. How hard do you work on different aspects? Are you in the gym a lot, or are you just spending loads of time on the bike? Is it a bit of a blend? What's going on behind closed doors?
For me, the gym work isn't a big thing. I do work with Gareth at GMP Fitness near me, but I don't do a lot. It's sort of just here and there, and it's not something I focus on big, like say Matt, my teammate.
Yeah,
because I know he trains really hard, and I'm definitely not like that. I think the main thing for me is the bike time.
Yeah,
and if I feel good on the bike, and I've done a good couple of weeks riding and whatever, then it doesn't affect me not training as much.
Yeah. Do you feel like, looking ahead towards elite, do you feel like that's something you're maybe going to need to change to increase the strength? Because obviously we look at riders like Piron and Bruni, like when you stand next to those fuckers, you're like, whoa, they are tanks. Do you plan on mixing things up, or are you going to keep the same approach going into elite?
I think I'll definitely train harder than I have and do more training, but I think it sort of works for me.
Yeah.
And in Val d'Isole this year, I mean, that's the hardest track anyone can race, and the length is really long and so rough, and I feel like I can hit the last corner as good as the first corner, and I don't, like in Val d'Isole, I didn't feel fatigued that much.
Yeah,
so it seems to be working.
There you go, exactly. And I think there's a big thing for someone else's approach doesn't necessarily work for you, so I like it.
And I think it's interesting that you and Jackson's not, he's an 18-year-old lad as well. He's not, and you two have, it seems like every year it's you need to get stronger. And that's probably pushed by Amory, who's, just a machine. He looks like he's the most ripped out of anyone. So everyone probably looks and thinks, he's setting the fastest times. I need to be like that. And then you see you and Jackson setting fast times and not looking like you've come straight out of the gym. I think it's quite interesting. And I think that's quite a different way of looking at it. And I think it's quite cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
for sure.
Yeah, you look at Amory and he's ripped and whatever. And I know Matt is just stupidly strong on the pedals and he's whatever. And then I see myself, but then I can still ride as fast as them.
Yeah.
And I think it's, as you say, it's whatever works for you. And I think what I'm doing at the minute does work for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good approach for sure. So this year you missed national champs, like many of us had to because of the ridiculous scheduling. We all had to be in snowshoe that weekend. Tell us a bit about your experience with national champs, because it looks like it's been evading you a little bit. Have you won it once? Is that right?
Yeah, just the once. Yeah.
Is that painful, or are you not bothered after the World Champs?
It is a bit. Yeah, I remember my first national champs, qualified first, was up at the splits, crashed out.
Yeah.
Second national champs I won as a juvenile. Third national champs, crashed out, got second by only a little bit, and then missed the next year because of COVID. And then first year junior, I felt really good. I set the second fastest time in qualifying out of everyone.
Yeah.
And I was up at the splits. I remember we got red flagged in the first race run. And I remember thinking I got that top section as good as I could get it. And I was really disappointed and I had to push up like 5 minutes to a fire road to get the uplift back to the top. And then you'll know at ballet you have to push another 5 minutes to the start.
Yep.
So by the time I got there, I was absolutely cooked. And then set off from a rerun, got it even better at the top, which I couldn't believe. And then got to the first fire road, and the tyre blew off the wheel, and I was pretty gutted about that one. Actually, I felt really good, and I was pretty gutted.
Sometimes the way.
And then this year we missed it.
Yeah. I think I was at Ballor. I think we did some interviews for it, and I was gobsmacked that you didn't. Did Preston Williams win it? I think he
Preston won. Yeah.
So back to this season, snowshoe was when the overall slipped away from you. You were 4.3 up at split 3 before crashing out, and I think that finished the push for the overall, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Unfortunately, I felt good at snowshoe, but it was so hard this year, I think, for everyone. And it was just, it was really hard to get down without making any mistakes or crashing.
Yeah.
And qualifying, I went off track and I was sort of pull it behind me straight away. Thought, it's hard track. It was out of my mind straight away.
Yeah.
Got to race day. I felt good. Got through the section good twice. That I went off track in qualifying, and then got to race runs, and I thought, I'm just going to send it and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to hold back and ride safe and whatever. And then, I just crashed in the exact same spot I went off track in qualifying. Which was that in annoying, the bottom? Yeah, literally just after the split. You sort of do a tight right corner, and it goes left and over a rock, and it's...
Yeah, so I mean, crashing there in both runs, like, I can tell viewers that is the hardest part of the track. Like, I spent Sunday morning there before finals, and 10% of riders were getting through there well. So
I remember coming into that section and thinking, I'm not scared, and it sort of paid the price for it a bit.
Well, Greg said earlier that it was probably the worst conditions. Did he say worst conditions he can remember racing in?
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's so greasy.
Those rocks are just lethal.
It was slippy.
Mont Saint Anne, elite podium times again. Jack, have you ever seen two juniors consistently achieving times like this?
No, not two. Troy did it, Lloyd did it. Maybe they weren't getting FTDs, but they were podiuming as juniors. But there weren't two in a year that were doing it now.
No. Worlds then, and you win seeding by 4 seconds. Jackson crashes out in the race, and you take the win by nearly 6 seconds. Pretty much everyone who's won Junior Worlds goes on to have a great pro career now. How much did that mean to you?
That meant a lot. I mean, I think to anyone being world champion means a lot, and it was so cool. I think the track was amazing this year. The French crowd is one of the best, and I remember getting a new bike, and there's that saying, "Feel good, ride good," and I definitely felt good, and that was. I couldn't believe it, having that. I remember sitting in bed that night with the jersey hung up and thinking, wow, this is real, and it's still getting over it now, it was insane.
That just must be incredible to sit there.
Yeah.
Just to go through it all and then sit in the room with the jersey and go, I fucking did it,
Bonkers.
Yeah, definitely.
So, are you conscious of that thing that I just said about, like that anybody who wins Junior Worlds, it's pretty much guaranteed a career now? Did you a decent career? Does that?
I'm confident I will be, but there's always if and buts. But you just gotta stay focused and make sure you get to where you want to get, and not think, "Oh, I'm Junior World Champ, so it's going to be easier." It never is.
Yeah.
So the parallels with you and Matt and Jackson and Finn are really uncanny. So one Brit, one Canadian, the two dominant junior riders across both junior years. Finn and Jackson won the overall both years and were world champion in the first year. You and Matt were won world champs in the second year. Did you chat with Matt much about his battle with Finn?
Yeah, we have a bit. Yeah, definitely. And he said how it happened with his first World Cup and how he felt during those races and how he won Worlds. And we did chat quite a bit about it.
Yeah, and that was pretty beneficial.
Yeah, I think so, because he's been in my exact position before, so he knows what can happen and how to go about it.
Yeah, it must be really useful. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about was line choice.
Yeah.
So I've bumped into you a few times on track walks, and you're not just on different lines to me, you're on different lines to Will Longdon. And at the last national at Revolution, I did an uplift with him, and I said, I'd seen you doing different lines, and he was like, "Yeah, we did a track walk on Friday," and he said, "I'm going to be up here," and so Will was just like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be anywhere near there," You're probably on different lines to Jack as well. Are you conscious of that? Because some of the lines you were showing me, you were like, I think it was either Langolan or Casus, and you were like, yeah, I'm up here, and it was on a corner, and it was right around the top, like it was above head height. Are you conscious of that?
Yeah, that's one thing I actually really enjoy is picking out lines and being on different lines to other people. One of the riders I look at for that is Reece Wilson.
Right.
And I think he's got the best style in my eyes. And I think he chooses a lot of lines that people don't do and a lot of unique lines.
Yeah.
And I think I've sort of picked up on that and taken that into my own riding style, and I use it quite a bit, and I think it's really cool, yeah.
With the other lads you ride with, because I know you ride with like George Madley quite a lot. Can they hold those lines or not?
Some of them. I remember Riola this year at the National. There's this, you might know, there's at the top, there's some switchbacks.
Yeah.
And there's one that's like got a vertical like wall.
Right.
And everyone just goes down the gully. And I sort of like rode up it, round it, and then like gapped out of it onto this bank. And I remember showing George and a few of my mates, Deck and Luke, and they were like, I'm not doing that. But it was, it was a funny one. But I love choosing these lines that no one's on. And
It is really obvious when you watch you ride and when you track walk that you just, completely different to everyone else. So post Worlds, it's all gone a bit bonkers, really. And I don't think it's actually ended yet.
No.
Because you won Val di Sole with the fastest time of the day by nearly 4 seconds. And then the National at Revs, you win your category by 11.5 seconds. Fastest time of the day there. Same at the final 2 PS races. I'm guessing you didn't want the season to end.
No, I really enjoyed racing in the stripes.
Yeah.
It brought me a lot of confidence, and I felt like it gave me extra speed, and it felt really cool. And seeing everyone on track looking at me, and it felt really cool, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And I think I showed that in Val di Sole.
100%. I might be wrong, but I can't see you continuing to race the PS races next year. Did you just want to keep wearing that World Champs jersey before the season ended? Is that?
No, I will be racing the PS.
Will you? Oh, that's cool.
I just love racing, and I wanted to do those last few races to wear the jersey as well.
Yeah.
Just because I enjoy racing it, all my mates are there, and everyone I know races them, and I've raced them since 2017 or whenever you said it was. So,
yeah.
And it's just fun racing. So I will be racing them if it doesn't clash with anything, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, they are really good events.
I think it's also good to show like the younger kids that you can be world champion from racing these races,
Definitely. Nice.
I think it's really cool as well when you look at like you've grown up not near any hills and you're a junior world champion. You look at like Danny, who's grown up in Hamsterley on a 1 minute track, and well, it's not 1 minute for me, but for him it's a minute track, and it just shows that you don't need to have those to be born in the mountains to be the world champion if you can hone your skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there's rumours you might be moving on from Madison Saracen. I know that's going on and we can't talk about it. So excluding that, how excited are you for next season?
Yeah, I'm really excited, actually. I think those last few races, like in Val di Sole and Andorra, it's given me a lot of confidence going into next year. And it'll be cool to finally race an elite against all the big boys. And I hope I can do well, yeah.
Nice. Any major plans for the off season? Any trips or anything that's going on for your preparation?
Not really. Not yet. I'm just chilling at the moment and still riding. I won't stop riding because that's what I love doing. So just enjoy it, really.
Yeah. So last question from me. So George Madley, you ride with a lot. He's had a great season in youth. Does he have another season in youth?
Yeah, he does. Another season in youth, yeah.
That's worrying for a lot of people. Do you think he's going to follow the same trajectory as you? Do you feel like he's going to be as good as you?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I do ride with George a lot. He's one of my best mates. And most times I ride, I'm with him. And Yeah, he's still got another year in youth, which is pretty scary to think, because he's already setting times winning juniors when I'm not there and whatever.
Yeah.
And he's still got a lot to learn. You know, he does make a lot of mistakes, which is obvious for a youth. But I think he's a good rider, and he'll do well. I'm sure.
Nice.
I thought he was moving up to junior next year. I mean, looked at those times. I didn't think there's any way he's got another year in youth. Jesus, that's my
he is fast. I ride with him a lot, so he picks up on it, I think. And we raced the Pierce at Bucknell, and it's not an easy track. I remember did you have 2 race runs at Pierce?
Yeah.
I did my first race run, and he had done his, and he went up for his second one, come down, and he was 0.8 behind me. And I was like,
shit.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, I've got to really try hard here. And remember,
how would you have felt going up for that second race run if he'd been 0.1 in front of you?
I don't even know.
I remember put the pressure on.
I remember going up for my second one, and I went over to him before I went up, and I said, right, I'm flicking it on to World Cup mode.
Yeah, and you're in trouble now. Yeah.
I went up, and I was actually really I felt pretty chilled that week. I was like, oh, it's a Pierce race, so I'll win it. And then he did that. I was like, so I went up and really tried hard, and then beat him by 3 seconds or something.
Yeah, it's good to push each other like that. It's nice.
So the last question from me, really. What were the aims for next season?
The aims?
Have you set any goals? Have you?
Yeah, I think the main goal would be top 5. That's quite a big goal. And I think if I'm outside the top 10, I'll be pretty disappointed, I'd say.
Is that at the end of the season or at each race?
I think each race, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to give yourself some wiggle room with that? And if you have a couple of bad ones, are you going to let yourself off, or are you going to? Do you think are you the kind of person that each time you don't hit that goal, are you going to be pretty mad with yourself? Or
yeah, I think I'll be happy if I'm inside the top 10, and if I'm outside it,
you won't be.
Yeah, I won't be. Yeah, I think a lot of people say I'll be in the top 20, but I think everyone wants to do well and win. So I think, I'm just saying how I think it is. So.
Yeah,
top 10 is for sure a realistic target.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I can't tell you how excited we all are for next season. I don't think I've ever heard as many people get as excited about a season before. So I hope that doesn't bring a stack of pressure, and you and Jackson can settle in nicely. And thanks for making the time to come on the pod. It's been much appreciated. It's been great chatting to you. So before we go, we need to give a shout out to your dad, Steve, because I know he listens regularly when he's in the truck.
He does,
I think, trucking up and down. Is he UK trucking or is he Europe?
No, I don't think he does that anymore. He sort of does a bit of everything now, and but he does listen to it a lot for sure.
Cool. Well, that's it for another episode. Thanks, of course, to the sponsors of the show, Hope Technology, JTech Suspension, Revolution Bike Park, Ride Southern Spain, Schwalbe and SingleTrackWorld.com. As always, if you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you've got a sec, please drop us a review. Alternatively, please give us a follow on Instagram at Making Up the Numbers Racing or Facebook.com/MakingUpTheNumbers. We'll be back very soon. I think the next episode is going to be with Thibaut Deprella and Valley Hall, if we can make that work. Until then, thanks very much for listening, and enjoy those autumnal or spring conditions wherever you are in the world.